people would say, "What do you do? Gift shop, greeting cards. You won't make any money." Like, so many people don't take us seriously. When I used to go to the printers and I'd say, "I want this color, I want this paper," they would say, "It's for church, no?" Like, that bothered me. My disappointment was, did I hear God wrong?
Exactly.
That
You don't want the store to be just a store, you want it to be an experience.
Yeah.
And I've always had that. Listening to you talk, and you're just so gentle and so calm. Wondering, how do you ever get angry?
Oh, yes, I do.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Work in Progress. This is episode 6, and we're so glad to say it's episode 6. It's quite small testimony. In the beginning of this year, I actually wrote down a few goals for 2025, and one of them was reaching episode 6 of Work in Progress and reaching 1,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel, both of which I can say by God's grace has been fulfilled. God is so amazing. He has done exceedingly abundantly to what we are capable of, and we just want to give God the glory. Today it's only going to be me, so you have to bear with me. Our dearest Febin is traveling. He's not in the country right now, and we're really going to miss him, but we do believe that God has something in store for you today. And for our episode today, what if I would tell you that, the passion that maybe you have, maybe something is in your heart, you have a desire in your heart. What if I told you that that desire, God has put it in you, and you can pursue that desire and bring God glory? What if I told you that the God is nurturing a skill or a particular field in you that nobody around you is able to relate to? It's never been done before. You'll probably be breaking new ground if you pursue it, but God is asking you to do it so that you can bring people to Him. The person that we've invited today is someone who's really broken new ground in the field that they're working in. She is full of passion. She is so creative. She is a business owner. She's an entrepreneur. She is so loving, so caring. I'm so grateful to call her a friend. And you may have come across her store. It's called Be Thoughtful. And if you haven't, then please give it a visit. It's not too late. I'm telling you, you won't regret it. She's a Bezalel in our generation, and I'm so glad and honored to have her in our midst. So please join with me to introduce Miss Karuna Jerome. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Work in Progress.
Thank you, Ananya, and thank you for having me over.
Thank you. So how have you been? How has the season been for you?
It's been good. I'm doing well. So much of God's goodness. In fact, just coming here to spend time with you, I just took some time off to think of all that's God's done, and so much of God's goodness. So every season He's been faithful.
Praise
Yeah.
God.
And it's
So we actually know each other maybe more than 5,
from
6
when you
years?
first moved to Bangalore, I think.
Yes.
Yes.
So you were one of my first friends at church.
And I remember you as a new student in Bangalore, and yeah.
Yes.
And I've loved seeing how you have grown so beautifully in your faith.
Praise God. Yeah. I was really, I can also testify to that.
Yeah.
Really seen myself mature in the
Over
Lord.
these years.
Over these years. Yeah. So we just want to get into, as I introduced, be thoughtful before we get into that. Can you just tell us, where you grew up? How, where are you from? All your childhood memories. Yeah, you can tell us all about that first. We'll start right from the beginning.
So, though I was born in Bellary, all of my life actually has been in Bangalore. So, I've been in Bangalore since I think I was a year old or so, and schooling in Bangalore in the same school from nursery to 10th in Sacred Hearts. And then I did my pre-university in Bangalore too, my undergrad. So, been here all my life. All my memories are in this city, associated with the city. So, and I love it. Um, my childhood has been fairly, I mean, what would I say? Simple in the sense that uh, what you would have, like going to school, coming back, enjoying a good, happy home.
You're the
Going
only
through.
one at home?
No, I have an older brother as well. Yes. So a very protective older brother. Yes.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. So yeah. So those are my childhood years. And my whole journey as a entrepreneur started later on, but yeah, I'll get into that too. I'll share that too. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And mom and dad, they were in ministry or what?
No, so my dad is in the Indian Administrative Service. So he has been in the government all along. No one has been in business as such. Mom was a professor in the university, but stopped working when my brother and I were born. And she is the heart of our home in so many ways. Dad has been exemplary in his work, a real testimony of living out his faith at the workplace. So that's mom and dad, yeah, and my brother and me.
So nice. So happy memories, childhood. everything
Yes.
was awesome. Okay.
Yes.
How did you meet the Lord though?
So I grew up in a home where church and faith was always very important. So it wasn't alien to me in that sense, but it was somewhere about, I think when I was about 15 in high school, dad's friends used to come by and invite my parents over for a retreat or what they called a seminar. And so initially, mom and dad went for it, and then my brother and I did. And that was the charismatic movement where, for me, that my faith transitioned from all through my childhood. I was a very fearful kid. I used to be frightened of whether it was authority or darkness, like little things. And I don't think it was, I hope it wasn't very evident in my life, but when I went to this retreat, at the end of it all, the person who was playing with me didn't know me at all. I mean, she didn't know me. I mean, it was the first time she was meeting me, and she prayed with me, and then she wrote down on a piece of paper 2 Timothy 1:7. The Lord has not given you a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and of sound mind. And she said, memorize it, hold on to that, and that is, the word for you.
Wow.
And they also introduced me to a personal relationship with God in terms of reading the word, understanding Him for yourself. And my understanding of God transitioned from someone I would be fearful of to a loving father. And that was the most precious thing. Loving father, his son as my savior. So it happened around then. And then on, life has been very different. The choices I made, the way I make choices and decisions, everything changed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Praise God.
So
It's amazing.
I sometimes think, it would have been very different if I didn't make that. And I'm so glad it happened at that point that where it was critical for me. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
And so, you're very creative. So when did that all begin?
when did that happen? Well, I can't point a specific time in my life when it started. When I look back, I always liked anything creative. So my first distinct memory would be in what we call junior one. I think we call it UKG now. There was this art kind of competition in school, and I remember drawing something. And whenever I painted or drew, it's like, you come alive, that kind of a feeling. It brought me so much of joy. And I remember drawing just the hills and a lake and the birds, a typical scene. And then I remember that sheet marked because I won a prize, and I was so excited. And my mom came to school and took a picture of me kneeling next to that picture. And then ever since, so we had this class SUPW in school, and I would wait for that. So whether it was needles and thread and or sequins, beads, it just made me so happy. And it was always at the last class on Friday, at the end of the week, I'd wait for that. So I think the journey happened all along, and at home, whatever there was, if there were paints or whatever we had, like I would love experimenting with things and doing things. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I mean, all of us, I loved anything to do with paints and all
yeah.
that. But when did you start realizing, okay, like I can actually do something with this?
I don't think I ever realized. I think that's one thing when I look back, I think I doubted myself in so many ways. So while I enjoyed it, I wasn't confident that I was good at it to do something with it. So I always enjoyed it as a hobby. I kept thinking it's a hobby, and typically no one would really consider this as a career or something that you would do something with, right? So it was always something that you would do to kind of enjoy yourself in your free time, the
Break some stress of
yeah
routine out.
or a holiday activity, right? That's the way I viewed it.
Right.
It wasn't really something that I thought of
for the longest time. That happened much later on. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So I think my next question is going towards that. We were talking about Be Thoughtful. So Be Thoughtful is the name of the store,
That's right.
and By Faith Designs is the name of the company name.
Yes, yes.
So how did that kind of come?
How did that happen? Okay, so actually, I'll go back to I finished my 10th,
Mhm.
and typically everyone asks you, like, what do you want to do next? And
Science stream, art
science,
stream.
yeah. And then I chose science because everyone says keep your options open.
Correct.
It was basically, I didn't know what I wanted to do, so chose science because that would kind of buy me 2 more years to make up my mind.
Correct.
That was also the point where I had talked about where I came into a relationship with God, where there was more conversation, understanding what He wanted. I mean, reading the Word. But that decision I just made, without really praying about it or thinking much about it. I just thought it was the most logical step to do. But while I enjoyed science all along, those 2 years were really tough. In the sense that I'd never used to go for tuitions or any add-on, but those 2 years where I really struggled, and I said, okay, is this how it's going to be if I pursue it later? So I did the entrance exams for medicine, for law, for architecture. Yeah.
Okay.
So, whatever everyone said I was good at,
You just gave it a shot.
gave it a shot.
Right.
But it was in my the second year of PUC, towards the end, that I actually stopped and I realized, okay, all these options, and it was a very, very simple question, like with just childlike faith. And I just said, Lord, what did you make me for? And my reasoning was that if I did what He made me for, I would be fulfilling His purpose, and that is where I would be most content. I would be in the right place. So that was
this understanding
so
then.
no, but the question was very simple.
Okay.
It was like, what did you make me for? So, but yeah, the reason behind it was, I wouldn't say it was understanding. That was my reasoning, maybe, that He would have the best answer, while everyone had options of what they thought I was good at. Like, God, what do you think I'm good at? What did you make me for? And the other thought was, like, when you create something, the person who created has a purpose for it, and like whether it is even designed, right? And when that product or that whatever is created is used for what it's made for, that's when it's working best.
Yes.
Right? So that was a simple question. But the next thing I had added on was saying, I'm not sure how to hear your voice, Lord. So right now I had like a very short time span between finishing college and getting into the next season. So I said, shut all the wrong doors, please, and keep one door open. And it was very unusual because at that point, during those 2 years, when I was doing my PUC, my English teacher called two of us out of class and said, why are you doing science? And I gave this very smart answer, said, to keep my options open. Basically, I didn't know why. And she said, have you considered doing English? I was like, when you're doing science, no one English,
step down.
never. Yeah. So I said no. And she was so kind. When I look back, I mean, I've just seen God so beautifully place people in my life who have really steered me on, into things that He wanted. So she asked me this question in the 11th, but in the 12th, in the second year of PUC, she would get the seniors to ask me to take part in fests and competitions. She'd get me to do things. And she said, no, I've seen how both of you write. She asked both of us, and you should be doing English. So I just kind of smiled, but I took part in the fest, and that gave me a taste of what writing and mass communication and media would be like. So I liked it, but at the end of the 2 years, I wasn't even considering it. And she said, would you do the entrance exam? Now, just out of respect, I said, okay, I will do it, but I'm not sure. I did the entrance exam, and she called back and she said, a couple of them called and said, you've got through, but you're not getting the admission because you've done science. And unless you give it to the college in writing saying you will not leave when the CET results are out, because otherwise the college loses that seat. This was a course that had 20 seats. So that was that point where I had to make that decision. I said, okay, Lord, I thought you would close the doors, and keep one door open. And then I went through that whole process. Do I want to give up everything else? All the other results weren't out, law, all of that. And but by then they called me. They spoke to me, and they were very sweet. They convinced me. They said, if you like architecture, you can do interior design in the evenings. But by the end, I was convinced. I said, okay, I'll give it to you in writing. I will not leave. But the principal said, I'm not convinced. If you do leave, we will lose that seat. So I walked back and I said, okay, I was walking back from college and I bumped into a friend on the way. And she said, so what are you doing? So I explained what happened and I said, the next option is Christ College, but I don't even have a form because I've not considered this. She says, you know what? I have a form. I filled up my name. I'm not using it. You can use it if you want to. So I remember using the, white ink, filled up my name. I don't know what I was thinking and how I had the courage to do that. I went to Christ College and I stood outside the principal's office and the vice principal's office, and he said yes. So I went and told him my story. So he said, okay, and where are your parents? I said, dad's at work, mom's at home. So he said, bring someone along and we'll talk. So I said, okay. So I went back home, got mom, and we met. Then he took us to the principal. So they smile and he narrates the story and says, this is what she says. And he says, okay, you've come on a BCom admission day for mass communication, which is a BA course. So, and then in the end, he says, you know what? We're going to give you the seat. And if you want to leave, you can leave as well.
Wow.
And it, it was just, it was just such an unusual way of the door opening.
Yeah.
And yet with an option to leave if I wanted to. And I started that course, and the ease with which things progressed in terms of studies, like I was like with 1/10 the effort, I was doing well and I was enjoying it. It felt like the course was what we would call a hobby. Like I loved writing, I loved all of that, and I completed more than a month, and then I got to know about the results. And the one that I had narrowed down on was architecture because that combined design and creativity. And my classmate from school had her counseling just the day before, and she said, you know what, she told me which college I would get in with the merit seat, which was very good. And I didn't think I would ever do that. I said, I'm not going for the counseling. And it was much to everyone's dismay. And I understand, like, why would you throw up for this? But it was just that peace and conviction in my heart, which I didn't know where it was heading. Now, when I look back, it was just the perfect piece in the plan. So that's how I started with mass communication. And the journey of faith just kept growing. And whenever I'd have, time off in class, I would be in the library, not to read books, though as a literature student you would. I would sit there with my little Bible, which I still have, and my journal, and I would just keep writing and writing. And um, I, there was a season where I just felt God was calling me. And I said, okay, God's calling me. Like, I feel like the call of God on my life. And I assumed God's call meant ministry, which would mean preaching. And I was like, I can't do that.
And all this while you don't have some kind of counsel, someone you.
I did. So, towards around that time, I started going for the midweek Bible studies at the church near home, TMC. And most of the people at the Bible study were all much older folk. And my brother and I used to go for it till my brother moved. And the pastor of the church was there. And I did have, by then, there was also youth ministries that I started getting involved with. So there were people I would talk to. But from early on, there's one thing that while I would talk to people, and it is very important to have godly counsel, to also be so strong in what God wants for you, that you know when so, and that's something I tell you about what happened more recently, where I think my mom questioned me about it so clearly, and it came through about no matter what man says, what does God say, right? So I did have counsel, but which was very helpful too. So when I remember when I went back and I told the pastor, I said, I feel God's calling me to ministry and I don't know what to do. And he said, okay, take 6 months and you're going to pray and fast through that time.
I love how pastors just give you a time frame.
Yeah.
Take 2 weeks, take 6 months.
Yeah.
Just give you
Tell you what to do. Yeah. And thankfully, since I was in college, it was okay. It's not like I had a deadline, and and if someone said go and spend 6 months dwelling on the word, reading the word,
yes,
I'm happy to do that. Yeah. So, and he said, study how different people were called by God and how do they respond. Starting with the first conversation with God, like between Adam and God, like, and to go through that, and I would keep writing about it. And for me, the pattern that came through was the same thing that I struggled with fear, but every time they, like, God would say, fear not. fear not. Like when Samuel was called, when Joshua was called,
Be
yeah,
courageous and
be courageous, do not fear. Jeremiah, I have given you the words. So every time I have a question, it'd be like, do not fear. But I kept going through that, and then I said, okay, Lord, but what? Like, is it Bible college? I mean, that's what you just assume,
exactly.
right? God's call is ministry, which is separate, which is Bible college. And
Yeah.
um, I remember again spending that time praying, and there was this verse, 1 Peter 4:10, that came through so clearly. Each one should use whatever gift you have received as faithful stewards of God's grace and serving others, administering God's grace in its various forms. So I said, okay, use whatever gift you have received. And the only gift I could think of was art, design, and writing. And I had not formally studied art or design till date. So I said, okay, but if it was art and design as a gift that I believe God's given me, how does that link up to ministry? Like,
Right.
or God's call? Like, is it a. So I went back again with a very simple question. I said, Lord, is it a spiritual gift? Like, how
Fair.
can. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, um, and then God, in His kindness and His patience, He answered again. So, spending time again in prayer and reading through. And then there was James 1:17 that says, um, every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights. And for me, it was simple. Like, God says it, I take it. So use your gift, and every good and perfect gift is from above.
Right.
So then I said, okay, Lord, so it's art, design, and writing that I can see right now. So what do I do with it, and how do I combine that? And I said, okay, if I'm going to use these gifts to bless others, what can I do? And um, I said, okay, what if I, like little girls play dollhouse, So I look back and I see how I loved visiting gift stores like Archie's and
Landmark.
yes,
Things like that.
and these little gift stores and with little knickknacks. I just love spending time there. In fact, one favorite childhood memory would be on Sundays after church. We drive past what we call the BDA complex in Koramangala,
Yes.
and there was this corner shop in the complex. The name of the shop was Punya's. I distinctly remember it, and it was just a little gift shop, and a lady ran the shop. And I think I was around 9 or 10, and mom and dad had become friends with the lady by then. And when I said I want to go there and help her, basically intern, so I went and helped her one summer.
Wow.
And the amazing thing is, she visited this store a month back looking because someone told her, someone called Karuna has a gift store, and she said, if it's a gift store and if it's Karuna, it has to be her. And we caught up after all these years last 2 weeks back. Yeah.
She must have been so proud of you.
We were in tears, both of us, like through the conversation. And she says, when I walked in and she told Hansa, she said, if anyone would do this, it's her. And I was just thinking, I didn't see that in myself then, but she said, the joy that you brought me then, the conversations we had, and I see all of that over here in a gifting space. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So in college, going back to that point, right? So I said, Lord, if I'm setting up a design company, typically design companies or boutiques or brands name the company with their name. And nothing wrong. That's the identity of the brand. But I was like, this is not me. Like, I don't know anything about business. There's so much more. It's not Karuna, like alone. It's not that. So then I started praying about the name of the company, and I took, I think, a few months again. And each time I prayed, I would keep reading about by faith, like the two words by faith, living by faith, how it pleased God, and right through Scripture. And then when it came to Hebrews 11, there's an entire section,
Yeah.
and I said, okay,
Hall
so
of-
it's yes,
Hall of
Hall of Faith.
Yeah.
That's right. So I was like, okay, it's not by Karuna, it is by faith. So that's how by faith was established as
Now
the
that you
name.
say it like that,
Yeah.
it just sounds very nice. Yeah. By
So, and I'm so grateful for that name, because that name and what it means has carried me through so many seasons thereafter. So, even that has been, in a way, prophetic, and what God wanted to minister to me as well, not just to others through that. So, like, it was always a reminder. It was always like that plumb line, like, why by faith? How by faith?
Wow.
Yeah.
It's been an anchor for you.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that is by faith, but the journey since was a long one. So I started with a pop-up stall with bookmarks. In college, I had a professor, again, just, and I have some people who very nicely will not ask, they will tell you. Sometimes we need that. They won't say, can you or will you? They're like,
Just
you are doing this.
yes. We need
And
that, yeah.
and then out of just respect, you kind of say, okay, I can't say no, I'm not. You just say,
And I think
okay.
you probably by nature were a person who was more timid or something.
Yes,
You had
yes.
to be told,
Yeah.
Karuna, do
Do
it.
it.
Trust us
Yeah,
and do
do
it.
it.
Yeah.
So, and it's kind of them to have seen that and pushed me at times when I really needed it. So he said there's British Council coming to the college and we're going to have a fest, a library fest, no stalls except yours. And he had seen some of the bookmarks that I had made. We're going to have your bookmarks.
So where are you, sorry to cut you off, where are you currently spiritually? You're still praying about what God wants you to do?
Now,
Yeah, when you're
at that
setting up the
the
stall.
stall, no, by then I knew By Faith was the name of the company.
Okay.
I knew it was art, design, and word.
Okay.
Or basically, I would just say
Mixture.
word and art
Okay.
was the two things. And for me, it was really one step at a time. I wasn't thinking far ahead.
Mm-hmm.
It was, okay, God's called me to use my gifts for Him. I wasn't even thinking beyond college. I said, I need to step out and do it. So, set up the company. This was between first year and second year, around that time, second year of college.
Mm-hmm.
And I would keep drawing out the logo because I had the word By Faith. So, I kept drawing out the logo in my book. And then when he asked me to set up the stall, I remember getting this white fabric and painting the banner and tied it up in college. And I would design at home. At that point, I was also volunteering at church to help with the church newsletter. So while editing the text, I would sit with the DTP operator at the printing press, but watch what he was doing with design software. And I would keep saying, change this color, change that, or try that. And then I realized it was also annoying, probably. So I said, I wish I could do this myself. And my brother at that point was doing his engineering, so there was a computer room, and he said, why don't we just get the software and you try it? And so we got the software, and
I'm loving how all this is working out.
yeah, all the bits and pieces, right? So many pieces.
Just
Yeah.
volunteering at church, you see a software
Yeah.
there that's helping you with what you're doing here.
Yes.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all of it it has purpose. Like if you look at it,
Yeah.
and at that point, I was just, it's like, you just be faithful with what's in your hand now. And little is much when God is in it, right? So you keep growing through that. So I started designing because the first thing I thought of with design and word and art, it would be a bookmark. And it's an easy thing to start off for a college student.
That's true.
So before that, I did have these informal pop-up stalls with classmates with a few other handicraft kind of products, and I did have the banner, the poster drawn. But when I had this banner with bookmarks, I remember printing the bookmarks, and I had this purple cycle. I would cycle to the BDA complex to laminate it. In fact, the guys who laminate the products still remember. The other day I went there and he called out and he said, "Do you remember me? I used to do your college projects and your laminate the products," which are just such sweet memories. Yeah.
So
More than 20, 25 years. Yeah, 20
oh
years back.
goodness.
So
First of all, the BDO complex is not changed.
it's still,
ancient.
yes.
And
And you
the
still
same
find those stores and brings back nostalgia. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Praise God.
So I would do that and come back and cut each bookmark to the point where I remember having blisters because I'd use a scissor and cut them, and I had 300 bookmarks. So I said 3 days of the fest, 300 more than enough. And the first day of the fest, I remember people coming by and looking at it. And so there was a mix of inspirational scripture, a mix of different kinds of text on it. But it just said, never, never give up, or something a little, humorous. But I remember one conversation where a guy came and said, there's so much of Jesus here. And at that age when you don't have any filters, no, I actually said, but Jesus, and he said, don't you have anything cool? And I said, but Jesus is cool. I mean, now I'd probably handle it differently, but yeah, at that point. And then the interesting thing is he'd come back at the end of the day when the friends were not looking and pick up bookmarks. And one thing that I started then was when I would watch people reading what's on the bookmarks or on the product, to silently pray for them. Say, Lord, even if they don't buy it, like let that word be a word in season for them. Let it bring that healing or joy or whatever they need, a breakthrough. let it minister to them. So I would stand at the table and watch that and keep quietly praying for whoever came to the table.
Wow.
And all 300 were sold on the first day.
My goodness.
So made more for each day, and that was the start. Yeah, so that was the start. There were different stalls. I remember when the church was raising funds uh, for the church. There were these stalls, carnivals, so it put up stalls there, and that happened over the years. I really wasn't thinking long term at that point in terms of I wasn't thinking of what would happen with the company. It was literally like, okay, what's the next step? Okay, God showing me a new product to make, let's make it. Got something new to do, let's do that. And at the same time, I was volunteering with different organizations or churches through college, as well as a job that came my way when I was studying. One of the professors, again, the one who asked me to set up the stall, he told me that his wife was on maternity leave and she worked in a large NGO, an international one. And he said, I need someone to handle her work while she's away. Will you do the annual reports, writing, designing? So it was yes, sir. Like, and I started that, but that also took care. Like, because I started, I mean, that was a paid job. uh, I had started as an intern there and I was supposed to be there for a year. And the CEO again over there was such a kind gentleman, someone I really admire. And towards the end of the first year, he said, you know what, even after the lady is back, will you continue? And I said, of course. So before I graduated, I had that job as they would call me a creative consultant. But through that, I learned so much.
Yes.
There was more writing, there was designing. I learned looking at annual reports, I had to write down, like a business report of the organization. There was training for them. So there was lots that happened along the way. And that is how By Faith was born. Yeah.
And how did you come about making that into a store?
Into a store.
Yeah.
So after I finished college, I just continued with pop-up stalls. And I did want to study further. I wanted to equip myself with art design. It was always his dream to study art or design. And I explored colleges, and I knew it had to be in the context of a Christian context of using it for God. So I said maybe I should go to maybe a college that had art and ministry. And I knew at that point Hillsong had a course in creative art and ministry. So I applied for that and got through all of that was done. Applied for the visa, and the visa was rejected. It took I think 3 to 6 months, the whole process, all ready to go, and the visa was rejected. And I said, okay, I thought I prayed about it. I thought it was the thing that I should do, and it was rejected because they said you need to have all those funds in your account, and I had intended to take a loan. They said because of insufficient funds. So then I said, do I reapply? And I felt, okay, this is what I had to do to equip myself. So I reapplied again and tried explaining that, how I would, and I, handle the course, and that I definitely want to come back, that my intent was to be here. Another 6 months, and the visa was rejected again. So it was very painful, embarrassing, at that age when you're all set to go and, you're wondering what happened. But I had just continued with what I had in my hands. I continued one step at a time. And through all of it, and I'm glad the foundation was prayer. So I learned that, through everything, just pray about it and go back to God with it. Even with the closed doors of Lord, I thought I heard you, what next? In fact, I used to help at the church then with media and sound and with the presentations. And I remember someone who was very senior was away for a while and he came back after a year and he said, Karuna, you seem to have learned so much at Hillsong. I can see such a big change. And I said, actually, I didn't go. And he said, what happened? He said, well, clearly you didn't need to then. But I realized it, and I can really testify God has been my teacher. Like, even when I used to sit at the computer in the early days, I was saying when I was designing bookmarks, I would sit with a blank screen. I have never learned any design software. And I sit and say, Jesus, what next? What do I do next? And, at every step, sit with a blank page so often, even to write. And through all of that, I can testify that He is the one who has equipped me. Um, and how did Be Thoughtful happen? You asked about that. So while I was praying about it, I said, okay, I felt the next steps would be that moving from the pop-up stalls, we would have a store. And I kept thinking about it, and
Hillsong wasn't
by then I had given up. Yeah, I mean, I had tried twice, and I just said, okay,
Yeah.
obviously that's not working. And I didn't want to wrestle with it so much and question it so much. There was a lot of, I just surrendered it, saying, Lord, there must be,
But
something.
I love that you've had that journey of, this trial and error kind of a journey.
Yes, yeah,
Initially you were praying that, Lord, you close the doors, and then God actually turned that
opened.
into a different
Yeah,
way. He answered a different
different way.
request. He opened
Yeah,
or he kept the door open for
open.
you.
Yes,
That you had the choice to either walk in or out. He respected your choice as
yes,
well.
yes,
And then as you went along, he brought you closer to him, even as you're trying to figure out your calling. And through that also there were many closed doors. Hillsong you thought you should go
yes.
to, that didn't work
Work
out.
out.
But the purpose that he had for you, I think also, I think because your heart was in the right place, you wanted to go to Hillsong to maybe your skill
Yes,
and
yeah.
glorify God. He made sure you got all that done while you were volunteering in
Volunteering.
church.
Yes, yes.
That's just amazing. And it's like, yeah, but it is discouraging, like you said,
It
sometimes
is, yeah.
when you expect something and it doesn't happen in the way you
Yeah,
expect it to.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think my disappointment wasn't so much that I couldn't go to Hillsong.
Yeah.
My disappointment was, did I hear God wrong?
Exactly.
That was what bothered me more. Like, I
Exactly.
really wrestled with that, saying, am I just imagining things or imagining what he wants? Am I not hearing him right? That was my question more than, of course, there was a disappointment of not going. Yeah, of that.
How did you deal with that though?
That was just, that season was difficult. I used to write. And till then, whatever I wrote was even there were many times that people like kind of pushed me to write. But what I wrote through that season, even later, like till date, there are people who say, that spoke to me. So that happened through that time. I would write maybe poems or whatever, God led me to at that point, more personally, which later got published. I would just, my next thing was, okay, what can I do that's, with what's in my hand? So that door is closed. I do have the options for these stalls here. At that point, I did not consider any other course. I think that just, in a way, took a kind of the wind out of my sails for that season, saying, okay, I don't think I'll look at pursuing that. Let me just continue with these stalls. But I kept praying through it. And one of the things that came through was when you're asking about be thoughtful. So I used to keep collecting information and ideas. So at that point, wherever I went, if I traveled, if I spent time in gift stores, I would start making notes and collecting information. And those years, God really worked in my heart with pictures and ideas of what was to come. And that is what gave me hope. Faith is a substance of things hoped for. So when you have that, it's like God renewing that hope, saying, these are the beautiful things, these are the enjoyable things that you can do with your gifting. I focused on that. And while thinking about the name, I said, okay, By Faith is the name of the company. And I never expected to have another name for the store. I would just think it was By Faith. But it was just, again, such a clear impression. And one day this word just came, like, be thoughtful. And I said, okay, why be thoughtful? So I said, when people come there, they're going to say, where are you going? I'm going to be thoughtful. Unknowingly make a declaration that they're going to be thoughtful. Yeah. And
Okay.
yeah. And
Now
from
it's hitting me.
yeah. And from scripture, all about God's thoughts towards us, also whatever is lovely and true, think about those things. And in the aspect of gifting, it's really the thought that counts. So I said, okay, and is that something that will draw people, will kind of define our what we do, So I drew out that logo, I think it was 2009. The store opened in 2015, so you can see the timelines were very, very like really stretched. Yeah, apart. Yeah.
Wow.
So then when we had the pop-up stalls, I slowly introduced Be Thoughtful at the pop-up stalls as a name, but I'm pretty sure it was confusing. Even now, people are like, okay, is it Be Faithful? Is it Be Thoughtful? Is it By Faith? Yeah. So, but there again, I know it probably wasn't like sometimes the traditional marketing, people would say it's not very wise. You need to have one identity. For me, it's just obedience. If that's what God put on my heart, I will run with that. Yeah.
And I love how you spoke about counsel as well,
Yes.
that sometimes I'm sure nobody was able to understand around you what is she trying to pursue? She
Yeah.
started with this, okay, she wanted to do this, and okay, this doesn't work out. Did you have that kind of pressure as well? And people are like, okay, no, you ask this person. I'm sure when it comes to, let's say, career choices, people are always like, no, take counsel from this person. He's very good.
Yeah.
You speak to him, speak to her. He'll be able to guide you. But you know that something in your heart, you're not, I don't know, maybe you're not able to explain it, or
Yeah.
you're not able to tell them what's
What?
happening. You can't convince them. But how did you navigate that?
So, one is, yes, I would ask people for counsel, and I think that's part of being a little bit of an introvert. You take it, but you process it on your own and do
Take what you should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not in defiance and not in disrespect. It was more out of, okay, does it really line up? And the critical thing was that was there peace about it? So, and sometimes, there were even people who would think that this is just like a kid setting up a shop, like a pastime.
Yeah.
Even now, in fact, sometimes when I talk to the team and I said, what would be a challenge? They're like, so many people don't take us seriously. And I understand that because I've been through that, but uh, I every reaction from a person doesn't warrant a response. So it's okay. So very often, while trying to find spaces for the shop, it took more than 10 years because, for one, I didn't come from a business background or a family, so I was again the old self of being fearful. Like, can I make it? Will I be able to do it? You sign up for a retail space, it's going to be tough. But it was a dream because I remember every time I set up a pop-up stall and I would wrap up, there are times I would literally come back bruised, like carrying tables and setting up, and I'd say, Lord, it'd be so nice to set up this pretty place and just lock the door and walk away and come back and open it. And the first time we did that, was when I took the hall in Koramangala Club for a day and a half. And that, so it was half of Friday and the full day of Saturday. And on Friday night, when I locked it, it felt so nice. I was like, we have a shop that we can close and come away, and go back where it's all set.
Yes.
Yeah, but while looking for places, I know so many times, even in the recent past, people would say, what do you do? Gift shop, greeting cards. You won't make any money, or you won't be able to afford. Quite often, we've had people say, you can't afford us, like our place. Or I remember initially they would say, there's a basement, a corner, you can go there. And my point was, I'll go anywhere, Lord. You want me to be there, I would, but where will we find an open door to, that we can set up space? So it was definitely challenging. There are times now as well, but over time, you see how beautifully God speaks for us also. That uh, just our journey has been testimony that the business doesn't just survive, it thrives when God is in it. Through COVID, through some of the most challenging seasons.
Right.
Yeah, and without borrowed capital to, I mean, to be able to see how God has guided us through. It's been amazing. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think that was, yeah, I'm just trying to process
All of it. Yeah. There are so many stories. It's a long journey for you. Yeah.
But it's amazing how God has got you, and your parents were supporting you all this while. They were encouraging you. How was your family responding to all
All of
this?
this. So I know initially there was that disappointment because I didn't do the professional course that I was
Expected, yeah.
yeah.
Especially taking science, they would have expected you
And
to.
you end up doing like writing and communication and then pop-up stalls with art. Yeah, when I look back, I was like, okay, it was not a very common choice that I had, pursued. So initially that was there, but there was always encouragement in terms of like when I did set up stalls, when I worked from home for the longest time. I ended up using the garage when I bought the first set of 3 steel cupboards to store products, and occupied when the books were published, the stair, under our stairs, over our stairs. So, yeah, but all along they've been very patient, very supportive. Um, in fact, the book that was published was with poems because Dad really pushed me and said you can do it. He gave me deadlines and encouraged me to do that. Mom has been the woman of faith who's like really said if God wants you to do it, that's the place you need to be at. So yeah, they have. I mean, when I think of it, it's not a very easy journey for someone to also encourage. And they've
That's
been
true.
very encouraging, very supportive. Even with the store while setting up, I remember the times when they would even come to just like mom would stitch curtains, dad would dust shelves, and things like that. To just have your family with you, encourage you is
Yeah,
makes
believe
such.
in you.
Yeah, yeah,
And not dismiss you and say this is all nothing.
yeah,
Something like
yeah,
that really matters.
yes,
Thank God for godly parents.
yes,
who-
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're at Be Thoughtful, the first store.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can take us from there to where you are now. Maybe we can
Mm-hmm.
go to that segment. And meanwhile, you can also tell us, I think, um, I was just reading up when I was preparing, and um, you see God being a very creative God. God all throughout Old Testament, there are books and there are chapters and chapters of God telling people exactly
Yeah.
the measurements of the curtains, how He wants pomegranates on
Yes.
the walls, and
Yeah.
what kind of things you have to mix to make a perfect perfume. And
Yes.
He's so particular and he's so
Detailed. Yeah.
detailed, and
Yeah.
and he's so specific, in all of that. Um and so I'm so amazed that God is so creative,
Yeah.
and somehow we look down on creativity, when we think of it in our world. And coming to now, you're basically a professional, you're in the professional space, and we see examples of that in the word as well. We see Daniel, we see Joseph,
Yeah.
how they were just anointed with God's Spirit, and they were not even known for being Jews, they were literally taken out of their country. They are in a different foreign
land.
country,
Yeah.
and they've learned the cultures, they've adapted all of that, but they're known for being excellent in their work.
Yeah.
So I think my question to you is, being that, first of all, I think being a new person in that space, you've never seen anyone done it before. Second, being a believer in that space, how did you kind of come to a place where you're doing it, but you're doing it well, you're doing it excellently? How did you strike that balance?
So I think that was one of the things that triggered the idea actually of BiFeed. So when I used to volunteer for church, which I told you about, right? So when I used to go to the printers and I'd say, I want this color, I want this paper. By then I understood paper and combinations, and they would say, it's for church, like, or anything else. If I designed bookmarks and made something, they're like, it's for church, so it's okay. And that bothered me. And I said, all the more because it's for church, all the more because it's what you would call Christian, it has to be good quality.
Absolutely.
And then when I traveled and I saw Christian stores that had such good quality products, say even for children, or what you would call cool products, right? They'd be so interesting and just the way they were designed. And I said, why don't we have that where people should want it, right? Not just settle for it. And that was one of the main reasons why we started out. So I said, whatever we do, we'll either do it well or we don't do it. So that was one key thing. In fact, just 2 days back, we had a team meet and we were talking about the culture of the company. And I felt so happy when I could just sit back and I watched the team discuss. And they were saying, whatever we do it well, even if it's a conversation. And even if a customer hasn't seen something wrong in a product, if we notice it, we will not sell it. And when I saw them saying that, I said, they have carried or understood why we do what we do. So either we do it well or we don't. And excellence to me is a display of who God is. God is excellent in what he does.
Amen.
And if we're saying, Lord, we are serving you with our gifts and with creativity, it can't be any less. It should not be any less, right? So for me, that was the measure. Of course, it does increase costs. Those are things that do happen. But that's a choice you have to make. Like, where do you want to compromise and where you don't want to? So that's something that we've been very particular about, and I'm so delighted that the entire team understands that as well. So even when we work on things, when we do a quality check, I mean, sometimes I joke and tell them, I said, maybe I won't pass your check. They're so sharp with their eyes, they're so careful with things and sensitive to the fact that, and I keep saying, if you don't buy it for yourself, we can't even put it onto the shelf, right? So
true.
yeah, so many of our suppliers say that they're like, we have never seen someone like this. And I said, even if it costs us something, if it's a loss, we won't let it go through. So one, people trust us, and more than anything, God has to be honored through it, through what we do. So excellence is non-negotiable to the best that we can do. And I would say it's not perfection, because that's another thing that you can, make that mistake as, yeah. So, you want to be perfect, so you don't do it, or you overdo it, to the point where you're not giving room for, you see, very often I say, Lord, I'm giving you this design, you do what you want with it, and He makes it beautiful. Yeah.
Amen. Yeah.
So,
That's amazing. I wanted to read a quote. I was supposed to memorize it. I have not memorized it. There's a quote by Martin Luther, and he says, "The Christian shoemaker does his duty not by putting little crosses on the shoes,
yeah,
but by making good shoes, because God is interested in good craftsmanship."
exactly.
That's so
Yeah.
true. But yeah, I can testify to the fact that I've been to your previous store, I've been to this current store, and I can really testify the sense of peace that you get, when you enter, and the kind of love and the gentleness that you all have, that, that you
True.
deal, with everyone. It's really amazing. I'm so glad to hear that people have come to the faith. And I think that's the whole point, that
Yeah.
people, they don't just buy something, they find Jesus.
Yes.
And
And that relationship, I think quite often we think it's you get to hit the goal straight, right? You
Right.
have the one conversation. But I think sometimes it's just over time that you have to just consciously pray for them, be there for people. And there are times it can be misunderstood also. It's not always,
Correct.
so easy.
Correct.
The best of intentions can be misconstrued, not in terms of the faith, but in terms of as a business, right? So that can happen too, but that's part of the journey.
Right.
You learn along the way. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think my next question would be, a lot of people who are watching would probably have different interests, that they probably don't not able to relate to other people. And I think, like we were talking initially as well, there somehow seems to be a disconnect between what our work is and what
What
ministry
ministry
is.
is.
That kind of understanding is not there. There's something to do with work, okay, that's secular, but what I do for the Lord, okay, maybe I lead worship on Sunday, that's different, but it's really not like
It's not.
that. And
Yeah.
we worship in the same church, and we've always been taught that, every believer is a
Believer's
minister.
minister. Yeah.
So you are God's minister in the workplace, at home, on the road, everywhere you go,
Yeah.
you're a minister. So for people dealing with this disconnect of, okay, am I doing what God wants me to do? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Or am I doing ministry? Or if I'm thinking about ministry, should I leave my work and go? How do you kind of navigate?
Yeah. So I think that's a question that I had initially, because I assumed training for me would be at Bible college, and that was God's call.
Well,
But it was in 2015 when I actually went to business school, and I realized that was my training.
right.
And to know that, and I've seen that in my family's life, in the way, my parents have lived, that God's call is on all of our lives to live for Him. And there is no secret secular divide, right? We think that volunteering at church or what we do on Sunday is our ministry, and the rest just happens. But when we see that most of our time is actually in what we would call the marketplace, or if we're at home, right? We never switch off from being a witness. We're always a witness
Right.
for Jesus. So, how do we carry that into our workplace? It's just, I think, it takes wisdom and understanding that the Lord will give, to say, Lord, how do I translate that into my workplace? Because the other extreme is to not be a good steward of your time at work and say, I'm being a minister for God, and
That's
not do my work well with excellence, but we're being paid to do that job, right? So it, to have that balance of saying, I will be a minister at the workplace or wherever I go, and the Lord will give you wisdom to use our skills, our gifts wisely, our talents well. But there's never a moment where we are not, what we would say, in the witness box, right? We are always called to be that. So, and especially if it's a talent or a gift, right? Yes, there are some things that you can translate into work. There are some things that, like for me, I was able to I mean, God graciously moved that into a business. I never thought I would do business, like art and design, yes, but never thought I would do that. But He will lead, He will guide, and He anoints every part of our lives.
Amen.
There is nothing that cannot be used. Yeah, there is nothing. Whenever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many more we can reach at our workplace, right? How many? Yeah. Just a conversation, and you use that word excellence, right? Being excellent is not just in creativity or art, in everything that we do. When they see someone diligent at their work, someone they can trust, there will be a question, okay, I know I can trust her or him because of her faith. It comes back to that.
Right.
I know I can give them an assignment, it will be done well, and that opens doors for conversation. Yeah.
Right.
How we conduct ourselves, how we live.
It really
Yeah.
matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just listening to you talk, and you're just so gentle and so calm. Wondering, how do you ever get angry?
Oh, yes, I do.
You know?
In fact, quite often people say, oh, you're so gentle, so calm. And there are times I've asked Hansa, who has been with me for 10 years, I said, I feel so bad. Am I portraying something else? Because I can.
Get.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it takes a lot to get to that point. But I realized running the business has brought out a side of me that, there are times I stop and I say, okay, Lord, I didn't want to be like that. But as a woman running it on your own, there are times you have to draw your lines. There are times you have to face situations where people are not taking you seriously. And not that you have to raise your voice for it, but there are times that you may have to. But not, I wouldn't say raise your voice, but be more firm, assertive. And also, I think just protecting the team too. There are times that, you have to kind of juggle many roles.
Right.
And the struggle for me personally is we have By Faith as our brand name, which is the company name, which defines our identity. Be Thoughtful defines kind of our culture. And then when you have this moment where you have to be so tough, and I'm like, but I have to be thoughtful, I have to be kind.
Yes.
It's not easy.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's such a funny incident that comes to mind. My mom will be watching this and she won't be happy that I'm sharing this. But anyways, here goes. I think they were at the airport. My parents were at the airport and they got into a scuffle with someone at the security line. And I think it was like an argument. I think that person was like, how can you go before me? No, you have to stay back, something like that. Or how can you put this in this tray or something like that? And she's like, no, you're supposed to put everything in the tray. And my mom's just defending. And then my dad jumped in and, it was like a scuffle.
Yeah.
So the way she explained was so funny. And then they get on the plane and my mom has one book with her to read and that says that's something to do with leadership and being like Jesus. She was so embarrassed to
open
take
it
that book. She's like, I cannot. And I think that gentleman was on the same flight or something like that. It's like, I cannot, Lord, read this book on this flight anymore. So that's what I was thinking. I was looking at you. I was like, it must be so easy to lose your calm.
No, and there are times when I really pray. There are so many times, like before meetings, where I know it's going to be difficult or a conversation, and I say, Lord, loosen my tongue, but I should speak, will speak what I should, and stop me when I shouldn't, because there are times when you have to be assertive. And actually, my dad is the one who keeps like, okay, enough of being thoughtful, like be assertive,
That's true.
be assertive, make your stand, don't be apologetic, don't let people, run over you and push you over. And it's taken a lot. But we need that skill. You need that, yeah.
It's very true.
Yeah.
And even Paul is like that. Paul, he's, as much as he pleads with people to, stay in the faith, don't forget the Lord, don't forget what we've taught you. And at the same time, he says, I'm a Roman citizen. You have to come and get me out.
Yes.
So, you have to know that
balance.
As women, I understand it's harder for me. I'm a person who cannot say no at all to anything. So it's a learning curve.
I've been there. Yeah. Don't say no, and then after that, like, okay, how do I deal with it? And then I tend to apologize as well. And that can happen. But you learn along the way. Yeah. I think for me it happened more when I had to take care of the team. So it was more not
Like
so
a
much about
mama bear attitude.
it wasn't so much about it was more about them, and if anyone messed with them,
that's so nice.
it wouldn't be okay. So but I think over time people also realize, and they understand. They said, okay, it takes so much for her to really lose it. There must be something not okay. They deal with it. So it's a mix of both.
Right.
but
Okay.
I'm not always gentle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. My experience has been amazing at the store.
Mhm.
I think you've shared this before as well. The fact that you don't want the store to be just a store, you want it to be an experience.
Yeah.
And I've always had that. Like I remember coming to the store always after a not hard day, a long day at
Day.
college or something, and be tired, and just
Mhm.
come, and just the fragrance of the store is
Oh.
enough to just calm you,
Mm.
and it's so beautiful. So have there been any moments where you've just really felt God's presence, or like these God moments, like we say?
Oh, so many God moments. You probably need another episode, but I'm going to pick a few. Maybe I should start even before the store. There's one, I mean, it's been the journey along the way to the store and thereafter. So I used to write little poems when I designed the church newsletters and even the annual reports to describe the design, because there was always some meaning to the design and I didn't want people to miss seeing that meaning. So I used to write these little lines which ended up being prose or poems. So later, people started saying, you know what, we've been cutting out the cover and saving it or giving it to friends.
Wow.
So can you put these together and give it to us? So I said, okay, maybe I'll just do a black and white print, put it all together. And then my dad said, no, you know, you'll do more, like get it to be a book. And at that time, dad was posted in Bombay and I was visiting him, and I love working. So he said, no work, but the only work you can do is if you're going to make this book happen. So I said, okay, I think, a month there. So I sat and uh, illustrated the book, which now when I look back, I think I could have done much better, but I did that, put the text together, and I thought I'd print 10 copies of the book for whoever had asked. And one thing led to the other, and like, okay, we'll have a proper book launch and we'll have the publish the book, get an ISBN code. We did all of that. And I went to the printers who have seen me cycle up to the printing press over the years. And I went to them and I said, this time I'm publishing my book. I want to choose the paper. I want to do things. What are the costs like? And when they told me, I said, okay, I have around half the amount. Can I pay that? And I have some time to pay the rest. They said, they were very kind. They said, sure, no problem. And I said, very confidently, I said, if I need to do a reprint, how much will it cost? They said, if we have the plates still with us, it'll only be the cost of paper. But otherwise, we'll have to redo everything. So I said, okay. I said, can you hold on to the plates for a while? And we printed a good number. I got that done. And I remember going to Landmark. And the good thing about being clueless of what can go wrong is that then you do things
Without
with
hesitation.
hesitation. Yeah. So I remember going to Landmark with the book, walked up to their office, and I met someone there, and I said, I have a book. Can you sell it here? So he said, can you leave it with us? I said, okay. I went back the next day, and they were all nudging each other and saying, that's patchwork, patchwork. And I was wondering, okay, what did I do wrong? And they said, no, we've been taking pictures and texting our friends. We really like it. None of them were off the faith. And they said, not just sell it here, shall we have your launch here? So I said, okay.
Wow.
But the launch didn't happen there. We actually had the launch at Raj Bhavan, but it was sold at Landmark. One of my childhood dreams, when I used to see people painting hoardings. And I used to say how nice it would be to paint a hoarding. And then when my faith grew stronger in my teens, I said, I'd love to paint hoardings telling the world that Jesus loves them. And when the book was launched, again, I didn't know better. I just went to the office at Forum, now Nexus Mall, and I said, can I hang a banner over here talking about the book being available at Landmark? They said, okay. And I remember going there with the banner, rolling it down. It was over 2 stories, and it had things about the book and little, be encouraged, be blessed, be inspired, little quotes from the book. And only after I rolled it down and stood there and looked at it, and I said, that was our heart's desire, to have a hoarding and to have this there in the mall. And it was there in the bestsellers and in the new release section. And I used to keep going there and just taking a picture saying, oh, the book is there. And, and one day it's moved to another shelf. I said, oh, they've moved it out from the new release. And I look up and it says bestseller.
Wow.
And this is for some years. And within a month, the entire lot sold out. It was through Landmark and others. And so then I went back to the printers and I said, you know what, it's sold out. I need to do another print. Now, because it's sold out, I can clear that bill. And I had some money. But I said, I noticed errors in the book. I want to make changes. He said, if you make changes, you have to do new plates. So I said, okay. And I let it be. The next day he calls and he says, you know what? by mistake we kept the plates near a window. The rain has damaged it. We're changing the plates at our cost, so make all the changes you want.
Oh my goodness.
And when I got the bill, like whatever I had earned cleared the old bill and the next print run. So that is, and I
Wow.
was just out of college, so it's not like, a big resource pool in that sense. So those were God moments along the way. And this particular one, that Rachana, was so critical. It was in about 2009 or so. I'd been through the Hillsong visa not working, and there are times in your, and then I had also been through a very difficult season then, and I kept wondering, am I hearing God wrong? I started questioning that. I wasn't questioning God. Like, I know that He is good. I know that He is faithful. Maybe I'm just
Right.
like getting it
Getting it
wrong.
wrong, yeah.
And that morning, I went to church to APC, and we were at our old location. And I remember I have never prayed this prayer after. I just said, Lord, I really want to know if you want me to pursue with this. If you say do it, I will do it, no matter what it takes. If you say maybe I got it wrong or I shouldn't, I'll surrender it, my Isaac, on the altar. Like, 'cause by then I knew how much I loved what I did, but um, I said, okay, we're not getting a space. Other things are not working out. Am I just not getting it right? Like, if you need to kind of reboot, everything in me,
Rewire everything.
everything, so be, yeah. So I remember going to church that morning. I said, but I also don't want to assume. Sometimes you hear something and say, I think that was for me. I don't want to read between the lines. So I had all these lists. I said, Lord, I want to hear very clearly this morning that you want that by faith. I want to hear that. And then finally I said, okay, not so vague. I want my name mentioned. And this was, you've seen that church. There are no names mentioned. And that was a time when it wasn't even like we had a time of ministry where there was prophetic words specifically announced.
To a person or something.
So I went to church, and then pastor starts talking about faith, and I thought it was the declaration section. So I said, okay, faith, maybe. And it does so by faith. And I was like, okay, don't read into it. It's just the message. It's church. It's obviously there'll be messages about faith and by faith. And the whole thing, pastor starts talking about how God designs our life by faith, and how when we do things in faith, it pleases God. And it's a beautiful message. It's still online. Like, I
This
still,
was the year 20.
2009, I think,
2009.
yeah,
Okay.
July.
Okay.
And finally, towards the end, he says, I'm going to title today's sermon by Faith Designs.
My God.
And he looks around and he says, and I wonder if Karuna is here today.
Oh
And I'm
my
sitting there with nobody knowing what I had prayed for, what I had asked for. And I was like, did I hear it? Then I said, okay, I imagined that as well. Maybe, maybe not. But I literally froze. And then that time we had CDs with the messages recorded.
So you took
So
one.
I need to buy the CD and listen to it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was such a clear confirmation for me that, and God knew I needed it.
Yeah.
I really wanted it
Yeah.
to know whether I should pursue it. So when that confirmation came through, I said, okay, I will press on. As long as you say this is what I should be doing. I mean, that's what I asked for direction for. And that was 2009. The store opened only 2015. So it's not like the next month
Correct.
something worked out. But
Correct.
I feel those are times where when God gives you a word, it's to build you up, to kind of strengthen you, saying, you hold on to that. That's your why. Like in the business world, they say, what's your why, right? Why do we do what we do? And so much of it for me is, okay, God's told me to do it. I will do it. And yes, I will define why we do what we do and how we do it as the mission and vision of the company. So that was another God moment. Finding the store as well. So I had this business plan which had different parts. So we had the gift store, we had the art and craft supplies section, I had a workshop, an honor cafe, a little office space, a design studio. And anyone who would look at it seems like it's such a mix of things. And no one had really done something like that. And it's not like it was a new idea that I came up with. For me, it was more whatever, I was processing through the years.
Right.
Set up the stall and realize food was such a good part to have with it, all of those things that came along the way. And I remember making that business plan. And when I did that course at IIM, we were assigned a mentor. And going into the mentor meet, you have a one-on-one session. And I remember sitting outside on the bench and I prayed and I said, Lord, okay, I'm in this amazing business school with such wonderful teachers, and you get all charged up about business. But I went back, I said, I never want to lose sight of why this started and what we're doing it for. I didn't want to become, in
an
my mind,
enterprise,
an enterprise, or so secular in my mindset to fit in.
Right.
And so I started kind of questioning myself, saying, I hope I haven't lost that. I don't want to lose that essence. So I went into that meeting and I said, Lord, whatever is fine. I mean, like, speak through this person, whether he knows you, believes you, not speak through him. And if there's something I need to even release to make this happen, so be it. What had happened the previous year, which is an interesting thing, was there's this really large business, I'm not going to mention names, that had a beautiful big space in the neighborhood. And I met the owner and I said, I have this dream to have this kind of a store. He said, I love this dream. He was like at the edge of his journey. He said, I love this dream. I love this vision. And I had listed out shelf by shelf what products we would have, what we can do, and the research, that
corner is like this, that corner is like
everything for a large area. I had listed all of that out. And there were meeting after meetings, and he said, I'll get my wife into it, and we're going to have this whole meeting go through. In the last meeting, he said, okay, we're all set, and there's so much happening. So tell me about your family. So I said, yeah, mom, dad, brother. And I knew what he was getting to. He was like, so are you married? So I said, no, I would just say not yet. So he said, okay, then this is not going to work. And I said, why not? So he said, it'll have to be someone who's married, who has a child, then it's going to survive. And it just didn't make sense. He said, if you find a business partner like that, maybe fine, but otherwise it won't go beyond 2 years. And I said, I will give you my word for 2 years that no matter what happens, if something changes along the way, I will keep my word. It didn't go through, but God used that entire thing that I had planned for this. When I took it to business school, my mentor looked at it and he literally, I still remember his eyes wide open. He said, how long have you been doing this? So I said, I've been dreaming of this for 10 years, sir. And now, so he said, so what are you waiting for? And that's one thing that the business owner had said, you have the passion, we have the place, but I don't have someone to anchor it. Like, it was a perfect combination. So here the mentor says, you have all of this, but why not? So I said, well, there were two things I felt like. I said, I don't have the resources that I think I need to have for this, or the confidence. I'm not sure. So, and I would go with an apology saying, if something's not working, tell me so. Like, let it be. And he said, there's nothing not working here. He actually understood all those 5 parts. And he said, you're not going to wait till the next week for mentoring. I'm going to give you my number. We're going to stay in touch and let's move this forward faster. I mean, one thing led to the other. And towards at the end of the course, at the last mentoring session, he said, I still remember the one line. He said, Karuna, don't let the grass grow under your feet. That was the push I needed. And on one of those days on campus, I remember walking around IM and I was really uneasy. And I said, Lord, I'm feeling so uneasy, and it's all, whatever I've done has stemmed from a place of peace. But I'm feeling so uneasy. What's wrong? What's wrong? Or put it in my heart, like, why am I feeling on edge, literally? And I remember walking around till almost 3 in the morning. I said, I don't want to till you tell me, like, what's wrong? Like, why am I not getting it? Or what's it that you're trying to speak to me about? And then I had this picture where he takes me to the edge of a cliff, like, and you're looking over the cliff, and there's, like in Rio, you have this carnival, like bright and beautiful. And below that, there were these ribbons and bows and glitter and joy and celebration and all of that life of what I imagined, gifting to be. And it was like this voice saying, this is what I'm showing you. And, before you take that leap, you get that, on a roller coaster that in your stomach.
Yeah.
I was like, that's the feeling you're getting. It's not a lack of peace. That's where you are at now. I'm showing you all of this. And it's perfectly okay to use your free will to walk away as well on safe ground, or take that leap of faith. And you take that leap of faith, trust me. And that's that point where I had to say, yes, Lord, I'll take that leap of faith. Or I continue on safe ground, which I kept doing over these years with my own calculations of, I will do a stall, I can manage
this,
and I can do, yeah. That leap of faith was really by faith, and when I had that question with that impression on my heart, and I was like seeing that picture of me at that edge of the cliff, I said, the answer is definitely yes. I will jump. For someone who's been timid all her life, God uses that to kind of strengthen you. And that was again pivotal. And then when I had that plan of these 5 parts, I remember again, so my mentor told me, find out about a kiosk in a mall. And I came back and I said, sir, it's so expensive. I can get a space in Koramangala for that price. He said, then go get it. And I realized, okay,
Why don't you?
he did position it that way for me to realize that this was doable. Like, I was actually looking the other way around.
This is not doable.
Yeah.
That is an alternative. But
Yeah.
go for that, yeah.
And then I remember standing on the road on those lanes in Koramangala. I have walked all of those lanes, taken pictures. My phone used to be full of these to-let signs, calling people, and things just not working out. And I remember that day standing on the road and I said, how long more, Lord? And I turned around, I saw this to-let sign, and he said, once more. Like, so I took that picture. It's this real tone to-let sign. I call that number, and this lady says, okay, you can come and see the place. So I go with my friend, a neighbor. I walk in, and the rooms, there were 5 rooms. I had 5 parts in the business plan, and each room was just size and proportion to what I had in the plan. Like the largest area for the gift, the Honor Cafe. I don't think you saw that location. That was 2015 to 2019. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We moved in 2019.
19.
Yeah.
Right.
So finding that place was such a special God moment. I had no one on the team, nothing. That's another miracle. So Hansa is someone I had met at an arts conference in around 2010. And I'm not sure why. I just kind of met her. We were, I think, in groups at that conference. And then I just said, Hansa, I plan to open a gift store someday. Will you join the team? Yeah, and that was it. That was the only conversation we had. 2015, I signed up for the place on 27th August. That was a Thursday, I remember. That Saturday, the same arts group used to go and sing at old age homes. So we were singing at that home, and Hansa was there. So I signed this agreement with no one on the team. And then I meet Hansa. Then I said, Hansa, I've just found a place. Are you ready to join the team? And she looked so thrilled, and she said yes. And I was wondering why the excitement. She had just quit her previous job, I think in June or July, and she was waiting on God. And she kept telling her mother, there's a friend who told me that she's going to open a store. Over those 5 years. Someday I will join her. And she said when she was at church at her home, she didn't tell me all of this that day. She told me much later. The pastor came up to her and said, there's a job waiting for you when you go back to Bangalore. So that was on that Saturday. 1st of September, we get the keys. We walk into the store. You know how it is now, but can you imagine us walking in with one rug? I took the soft board from home, and I remember pinning up the sign saying, forget not all his benefits. That will be our Thanksgiving board.
Wow.
And so we started thanking God for plastic chairs, for table, for shelves, for supplier. We started putting up things on that. And that's how we started with just sitting on the floor there and set up the place in a month. And remember my mentor saying, you know what, these things take longer. I've seen how you work now, just take it easy. It won't be in a month. So I said, sir, rent starts in a month, I have to. And we opened in 2015, October. And yeah, the journey since has had so many miracle moments. I mean, simple things like in the first store, we needed curtains for the windows. And I had already gone and seen curtains at a place. They just announced there's a 70% off on the sale. And I had measured, I need 9.5 meters. So I'd seen this curtain, but I came away because we had not yet finalized the place. And after finalizing, I go back there and I look around for that particular one because nothing else would fit. And that was in the 70% off section. And then this man comes from nowhere and he says, Madam, you came the other day and you saw that curtain. I said, yes. He said, I hid it under a table. So I said, why? He said, I don't know. I just knew you'd come. And I said, okay, can you measure it? 9.5 meters.
Oh my goodness.
So it's from, I mean, it may sound small, but
It's not.
it's not. And I never want to forget those. Never want to forget those days when we would, there was another curtain I wanted a plain blue for a room. And I said, I need 2.5 meters. He had exactly that. The chairs we needed. And then as we went along with the business, the months we would do better, we'd buy one shelf, keep adding on little things. And all along the journey, we've seen the way, just miracle moments with things like that. So that was in our first location. Moving to the second location, everyone in the team, by then we had a team of 3, everyone fell sick really badly, and I was alone. And I would just have this sign that says closed for 10 minutes, and I would stick that on the door, run across to the new place that was being set up, and come back. And then a friend we had made in the business, she just came one day and she said, I figured things are not okay. She said, I'm sitting here, I will take care. and she brought her driver and she said, "We're here to help you."
Wow.
So
They took
the
over
way,
for that.
yeah, the way God has provided, because it's one thing where we know God provides the resources and He will do, but to have people, because they have their free will, they can choose not to, but to have had people come along the way
Literally come.
and so much of kindness, like just being so kind to us. Another amazing God moment was during COVID, and we moved in 2019 October because we ran out of space in that location. So we moved to a space much bigger with overheads almost double. So it was a big move, and we really prayed through that move and went to the new space. 2019 October, we go through Christmas. 2020 um, Feb, Janta curfews announced. I thought, okay, one day, we're not sure. And then it stretches into what turned out to be, yeah, or a year almost. And then retail stores had to be closed. And because we had just been through Christmas, and I was always very conservative about finance, like whatever we had, I would like be very careful about how we spent it. And thank God. So when we finished Christmas, we had that to carry us through some time. But things just panned out in such a different way. People asked for workshops online, and I said, I don't think we should be charging. We'll teach. We'll do that. But then it continued, but they said we really want to do more, and we started doing like 2 or 3 batches a day for more than a year. So that was one that happened.
I remember I attended, I think, as
One of the workshops. Okay.
yeah.
So that was such a special time, and we had people from later across countries, and I made such lovely friends. There were times when they would come down when they visited Bangalore, saying we were online and we just wanted to meet you. Conversations with children who had lost a parent, or there was so much happening then. So COVID opened that window for us in a way. But I think what was really pivotal was it was 2021, the second wave, when things got really bad.
Yeah.
And we saw so much around us, whether it was death, which you would have seen much more of, but we also saw, while lives were lost, businesses were going down. So there were businesses above us that just kept closing one by one, and we would call them in to be with us and just, I mean, for us to just be there with them. But it was very painful. Like, so there was some who had just set up, invested their entire life savings, and it was gone. And we would just, I remember there were days I would even open our front door in that store and just, I had a list called Breakthrough List, like with the songs that God was really speaking to us through. Play that loud. We had 0 customers at times, and I would just play that loud and say, let that just flood that place, the neighborhood. And 2021, after around the second wave, by then I didn't know, there were so many who would come and tell the team, aren't you closing? Aren't you shutting? There were a few who would come and tell me, when COVID started, we thought of you must be gearing up to kind of close down. And I wasn't. My mentor who from IM called me, and I remember him saying, Karuna, we're here for you. We're here for you, which is very sweet, very, very kind of him. And he said, when we started, in fact, he had also offered, he said, you know what an angel investor can do. And I didn't know. And he said, with no expectation, because I believe in what you do. We didn't take that. I didn't want to risk that. But during COVID, he said, nowadays you don't need to use checks. We can do a transfer. Do you need something? But do not shut. I said, no, sir. We're okay. I said, we're not growing. We're managing to break even with our running costs. He said, you know what a big deal that is during COVID to break even? Whoever talks of growth now. I said, yeah, but he said, promise me one thing, you will not throw in the towel. What you have is, there's something more to it.
Wow.
And he said, I can't put
Pinpoint
what it is, but don't. So, and it wasn't because of that I didn't. I remember one day I came back home and I told my mom, I said, Ma, I think we need to shut. She said, is it that bad? Like, are you okay? So I said, no, I'm recovering our costs, but everyone's saying we need to shut. So she just looked at me and she said, what does Jesus say? I said, didn't ask. So she said, okay, so you're going to shut everything. And she says, even if it's anyone who says that, if Jesus tells you, and that's one thing my mom has always told me, he's your CEO, he's paying your bills. It's not you paying your bills, right? You are working for him. And so she says, what gives you the right to think you can shut it without asking him? It's his, right? And so she said, for a week, I'm going to fast and pray like each day, pray about it. You pray, we pray separately. and no conversation about this with anyone. So I told the landlord, give me a week's time. I'll just get back to you. I took that week and I remember going through my little journal, going through all of that and praying. And just that calm, still voice was stay the course, stay the course. That's it. And then I went back to the time when I asked God, like, should I shut in 2009? And another thing that happened in 2019, I was at church and there was someone who was visiting. He doesn't live in the country and sat behind me at church. And after service, and we hardly chat occasionally. And he stopped and he said, Karuna, how are you doing? And then he said, I just want to say something. By faith is born of God, and that which is born of God does not die. This is before COVID happened. And I said, yes, praise God. Like, I had no idea what was coming. And all of that, God brought mind saying, okay, I told you about it. So where's the question of shutting? And I said, okay. So I went through that whole week and I said, this is not logical. And when you do things by faith, it's also not always logical. It's what God places on your heart. By the end of the week, like I had the confirmations that I was seeking God for the confirmations that I received. I asked my mom and she said, that's the answer. So I went back and I said, yes, I will continue. And
Wow.
the week after that, I had a call from someone. His son used to be with us as a student, and his wife had become a friend. She's the same person who helped us during the transition, and they'd become really good friends. And he called and he said, Karuna, I have a requirement in our company for a large corporate order. Can you handle it? And I was so, I mean, looking back, I don't know. I said, if you get approvals fast, then we can get it to you in time. He said, approvals shouldn't be a problem. So I said, okay. And that night I said, okay, Lord, this guy is trusting me in his company. So whenever someone gives us an order, we also pray that that person who trusts us will be honored for trusting us in their workplace. So we're saying it has to be a really good idea. So it was a travel company. And that night, there were these ideas just pouring in. I sat and wrote in my book. So I always have a book next to me, even when I'm sleeping, to just kind of sketch things that come to mind. And like in the morning, I called up and spoke to him. I said, this is the idea. He said, wow, this is amazing, but don't send it through me. Talk to the team. And so I said, oh, sure. So I talked to the team. It was a very detailed idea. Anyway, long story short, we got that order, which was really big. During that time, the team asked me, so how do you know this person? They mentioned his name and said, how do you know him? Like, how did he contact you for the order? I said, no, we're friends. His wife comes to the store. We know his son. They're like, he's the CEO of the company. And I asked him, the questions I asked him before. And I said, and that is the favor. And when I look back, I'm so glad we didn't shut, not because we got the order, but I would have missed experiencing the impossible being made possible in a time of famine to have that happen. And because of that, and after that, there were orders from companies like EY, Apple, like that entire year. From the time we started till then, it was our best year of corporate orders. And that was the way to have business because walk-ins were not so frequent. And that trained us for all that we do now, which is on a larger scale.
Wow.
But that moment was so pivotal. I don't even think he realized, how big it was for us. And that was what took care of us through that time with the other orders that came through. Because of us placing orders, the vendors who didn't take us, you were saying people don't take us, how do we deal with that? There are times you don't have to say a word. We went through that season, they'll call back and say, you're placing orders at a time when no one's even looking and paying bills on time, and after that, there's never any question when we want to place an order, when we want to work with them. You know, that season was, God holding us, 1,000 may fall at your side, it won't come near you. And I would always say we dare not say that with pride, that it is God's grace that we survived and thrived through it, came through that. There were other challenges that were very difficult through that season, but even God bringing us to the location you see now, I really wanted to move out of that building. Things were very difficult for other reasons there, but uh, fear really gripped me through that season while all of this was happening. And don't like to design or write from that place because it's not like in music, you say it's not a performance, right? It's something that has to flow from your heart, that is not um, tied down by things uh, of the world, whether it is fear, intimidation, or anger, and I had all of that because there was so much that was going on in me. I said, I really want to move out of this place. But then again, I thought God needed help. So I said, but Lord, if you think you need to refine me, okay, I will stay here. And I said, if you think we need to move to a smaller place, if we need to move somewhere else, I was giving him answers that he did not need, or, I was trying to negotiate, saying, fine, I'll settle for it. It was November, mid-November of that year. And if I needed to move, I needed to tell the landlord on December 1st, or I need to continue, like sign the agreement. So mid-November, we didn't have a place. And I remember coming to church, and that day, at worship, they sang the names of God, and He's more than enough for me. It's such a beautiful song. And I remember the week before, a friend had seen us this location where we are at now, and I had seen it in 2017. There was a store there. We couldn't have our space there at that point, and I didn't know it was available. Another friend found this location and said, do you want to take a look at this space? We can open something together. So I said, I don't think we'll fit, but we'll look at it. We saw it, and sure enough, we wouldn't be able to fit. But since she saw it first, I said, it can go to her. And I remember my dad nudging me, saying, but make an offer that, that you will take it. So I spoke to the landlord, the landlady's son, and I said, you know what? If you aren't giving it to her, can you let us know? I'd like to take the whole place. And I told him, but it has to be in a way where it does not hurt the other person, and it has to be peaceful. So he's like, how do you do business? Do you like? So I said, you don't be polite. Like, you wanted to take it. I said, no. So all of this happened. And that Sunday, I remember hearing this song in church and again surrendering. And I said, Lord, if this is the furnace I need to be at, like go through where we are now, continue where we are, so be it. But I'd really like to move to this place. November 30th at 8 p.m., the landlady's son calls and tells me, hey, Karuna, just to tell you, all's well. She's the other person herself doesn't want to take it, and we would like to give you the space.
Oh my gosh.
And December 1st, I sent that mail out saying we're moving.
My goodness.
Yeah. Another story. So I have so many stories, but yeah,
Please.
another one when we moved, after I signed up, then cold feet, because I was like, I haven't measured the place. Will we fit in? We were at such a big location. Will we fit in here? And then I'm looking at these plans. He sent me the drawings, and the friend who was the architect for the other places had moved to another country. She was in Dubai, so I had to do this myself. So I'm measuring those plans in centimeters, multiplying that into feet, doing that, and then saying, okay, I'm not sure if we'll fit in. So I'm sitting with this at the table, and I said, Ma, I'm telling my mom, I don't know if we'll fit in, and I've already said yes. So she said, you prayed about it and Jesus opened the door? I said, yes. She said, you will fit in, and if balls need to come down, that will come down too, but there's no turning back. And you need mothers to
Really do.
speak the truth, right? So I said, okay, went with it, but I went there and I remember seeing our billing room. It was just a small door, which is about 3.5 feet. So I said, okay, to fit in our billing desk, we'll have to cut the desk, which is not, we can do, but I really don't want to. And our desk was 6 feet, the entire length. So I looked at that wall and then I was like, okay, what do we do? How will we fit things? And I started measuring things. Then the landlady's son came with the contractors and the mason, like all the workers, and they're standing there. And I said, I want to fit my desk here. Can you open out that wall? And he said, no, there's a beam. We can't do it. So I saw all these guys standing and looking at that wall and me standing there in the middle. And I said, in my heart, I said, Jesus, Mommy said, if you're going to fit in over here, the walls will come down, leaving it. So then they said, okay, I need to go out for a bit and come back. And he went out for a smoke, came back, and then he says, okay. And the guys tell him, okay, the maximum we can open it out for you is 6 feet. How much do you want? I said, 6 will do. It was exactly that.
My God.
The walls came down for that. The rest of the place, we had a canopy in the Honor Cafe. It's like to the inch it fit. So the front area that we needed to make into a room, every part of it, there was nothing that was wasted. This move costed us half, the entire thing, because of the way, God gives us the wisdom, for what we need to do. There is nothing that we will lack, whether it is creativity, ideas, or even just technical know-how. It comes through so beautifully. So there were so many moments in that transition. And I remember that when he came through, he says, everything fits like a glove, the landlady's son. I said, yeah, it was like every shelf fit into that. You've seen the place now.
This is beautiful. When
And
you're telling me, okay, things won't fit, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
fits so
Everything
beautifully.
fits so, like it was made for the place. Yeah.
The space, there's surplus space
Space.
to
Yeah.
walk
Now
around
it's,
and
yeah.
it's amazing. So I think we're almost to the end. So what would you like to say to the youth that are watching, to the people that are watching? What would you like to leave them with?
Well, um, quite often we say pursue your passion or pursue what makes you happy. That's what the world says. But I would say pursue God, the giver of the gift, the giver of the passion. And when you do that, um, He directs you, He provides for you. And through all the voices that surround us, right, in our lives, that one voice will always have the final say, and He will always have our back. So when we pursue God in every area of our lives, everything else will be taken care of. So I think, especially for uh, the choices we have to make, I know as young people, you're bombarded with so many choices, whether it's career or so many decisions that we have to make, right? When we go back to, I think maybe there's that simple question, Lord, what did you make me for? Right? He will show you. He is faithful. He will show. And that when you begin with that why of your life, like, what did you make me for? Why? The purpose of my life. It's something that will hold you through storms and even through good times. That the pride is not in ourselves, but in God. Our confidence is in God and not in ourselves. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was
Thank
an
you for
amazing.
having me.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's been a long story to share. Yeah.
Thank you. We're so honored to hear your journey, and
Thank you.
I hope that people are encouraged by
I hope so too. Yeah.
that they're encouraged to just follow, like you said, follow God and
Yeah.
follow their passions for His glory.
Yes. Yeah.
And I hope people are encouraged to visit the store. I hope people
Yeah,
come
I'd
and
love
tell
to
you
have you all over.
yeah,
Yes,
how
yes.
blessed they are
Yeah.
by the store. So, and I hope to make it to fellowship soon as well.
Yes.
So thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you, Ananya. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So that's episode 6. Thank you so much for being here. We believe that it's been a blessing for you. Hopefully, Febin makes it for the next episode. I'm just kidding. He will be here for the next episode. So we see you guys in the next episode. Bye.